Happy New Year from Rose's Cafe. It's New Year's Eve here around noon in Roseburg, and it's time for me to start cooking for our New Year's Eve dinner tonight. We do have some round fruit here, as you can see. Well, okay, apples don't quite count, and we only have two kinds, but it was kind of the best I could do on short notice. Maybe I can make up for the lack of round fruit by cooking a couple of other Filipino classics for New Year's Eve. I'm going to make Biko with latik topping. That is a sticky rice cake with a caramel topping. Now, the recipe for Biko is simple enough, but let me caution you, you cannot use long grain rice that's prevalent on American grocery store shelves for this recipe. It will not work. Long grain rice has much more starch and much less sugar. It's not going to be sweet, and it's not going to stick and form a cake the way you'll need it to for this recipe. You have to use sticky rice for this recipe. It's an Asian rice, sometimes called glutinous rice, not because it contains glutens, it doesn't, but because it contains a high amount of sugar and it is in fact sticky. The Philippine name for this rice is malagkit rice. I think I got that right. Sticky rice may also be called by a variety of other names like sweet rice, waxy rice, botan rice, and pearl rice. After looking high and low, I was able to find this package labeled Pearl California rice, which in fact does appear to be the short grain rice that we need. Hopefully this dish, Biko, is going to help us have good fortune stick around throughout the year. So with no further ado, let's get started. Now I have our ingredients all lined up and ready. 2 cups of sticky rice, or it'll probably be labeled as pearl rice here in the grocery stores. 3½ cups of diluted coconut milk. Now make this by taking a standard 12-ounce can of coconut milk, saving 3/4 cup of that for the latik caramel topping, and then taking the remaining coconut milk and diluting it with water to get 3½ cups. We're going to cook the rice in this dilute 3½ cups of coconut milk for about 15 or 20 minutes. Once the rice is done, we're going to add the sugar and butter to the party, and then we're going to let it cool. After that, we're going to add 1 beaten egg. For the first step now, we're going to add the rice and the dilute coconut milk to a heavy pot. And we're going to put that on high heat until it starts to boil. The rice and the coconut milk mixture does need to be stirred pretty constantly while you're cooking it for about 15 minutes or so. The rice is cooked now to nearly dry, and I want to note that for me it only took about 10 minutes to reach this base. So I'm going to turn the heat down, and I'm going to add the sugar and the butter. After adding the butter and sugar, I did let it cook about 5 more minutes on lowered heat. We're just about there now, so I'm going to take it off the heat and let it cool. And now we're going to spread our rice into a glass baking dish. Now we're going to bake it at 300 degrees for 20 minutes. While that's baking, we're going to make the latik topping. Our ingredients will be 1 can of sweetened condensed milk, 3/4 cup of coconut milk, which was saved from the can that we used previously to cook the rice in, and about 2 tablespoons of flour to help it thicken. We combine all 3 of those ingredients in a large saucepan or pot, and we're going to cook it over low heat, stirring constantly until it gets thick, which should take about 15 minutes. Well, now the Biko has been baking for about 20 minutes, and the latik topping is thickened up very nicely. So now it's time to carry out the final step. We've removed the Biko from the oven, and now we're going to spoon the latik in a layer on top of the rice. Now the latik is spread out on top, and we've increased the oven temperature to 350 degrees. So we're going to put this baking dish back in the oven for another 15 minutes, and that will brown up the latik topping and caramelize it. Time's up, and there's our finished product. It smells really, really good. I can't wait for it to cool off and dive in, but I'm not finished yet. First, I have to make the pancit. So for details about pancit preparation, just check out the next video.
Ever.